Gentlemen, thank you for joining our webinar on early school leaving. We're live from Amsterdam. For today, we have a great agenda. I'm honored to have people presenting from Brussels, from Budapest, and of course here from Amsterdam. We'll be starting with the European Toolkit in a minute. We look back at the conclusions from the Crocus project. We have a short presentation from our ESLplus app that we have developed, and we talk through a wonderful new module on the ESLplus knowledge portal where you can use statistics in a very smart way. And of course, there's time at the end of the presentation for more Q&A if we have time left. Quick reminder, the ESLplus project is a Erasmus Plus funded program from the EU. A couple of partners from various countries have been working hard to deliver the ESLplus knowledge portal, as well as starting a community in Europe under the Alliance for Dropout Prevention in Europe name, as you can see here in your screen. We are actually close to concluding our project. The ESLplus portal is almost fully functional and ready. There are many case studies that you can find and research. You will hear a little bit more about that from my other presenters later today. We would like to ask you to join our LinkedIn community or our Facebook page, and I will send you a link by email after the webinar. The app is ready. And I would like to draw your attention to our final conference that we will hold in October. That will be a webinar as well. So there's no need to jump on a plane. You can just log in and listen to our final conclusions, as well as we'll be presenting a couple of early school leaving perspectives from various interesting speakers, as well as we have our opening keynote speaker, João Costa from Portugal, the Minister. The Secretary of State of Education from Portugal, joining as well. And I will send you registration links later in the year whenever that is all available. Then, without further ado, I would like to move on to our first speaker of today. That is Aristea Politi. She's based in Brussels, and she will switch off on her video as well as start her presentation any second now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Peter, so much for organizing this second event on early school leaving, this second virtual event, and for inviting us to present the European Toolkit for Schools. Dear colleagues, dear participants, thank you so much for joining this event. I work for the European Commission in DG Education and Culture in the unit responsible for schools and multilingualism. I have here with me my colleague Petra Goran, who is an expert on early school leaving, and we both work together on a European Toolkit for Schools. So now it's time to share my screen and get you to my presentation. Okay. So before actually presenting you the toolkit and showing you the ways that you can use it, I would first like to take you back and very quickly say a few words about how the European Toolkit has been developed. So as most of you know and remember, one of the 5 highlighted targets of the Europe 2020 strategy was to reduce early school leaving rates less than 10% by 2020. So in 2011, the Council adopted a recommendation on policies to reduce early school leaving, and in order to implement these recommendations, policymakers from almost all member states, as well as representatives of European social partners, gathered together and worked on early school leaving for about a year. And what they produced was these policy messages, which actually are short recommendations for policymakers on how to support schools in introducing measures to prevent dropout and provide a more inclusive education. And the second product of this working group was the online European Toolkit for Schools, which is actually based on these policy messages. The policy messages are the base of the European Toolkit for Schools, and it's actually a more concrete tool that somebody could simply describe it as a collection of good practices, evidence, documents, case studies, information to support school actors and stakeholders to tackle early school leaving and provide high quality education and more inclusive education. The working group, this working group focused more on prevention and early intervention of early school leaving in a school and local level, and they try to look at more holistic and collaborative approaches to early school leaving. As we all agree and know, early leaving from school and training is a complex phenomenon, and most often it's the result of a combination of several factors like social, economic, personal, educational, parent related. So it's obvious that the school itself cannot deal alone and in isolation with this phenomenon. So that led the working group to develop and introduce the whole school approach. Parenthesis here, you can later on watch also our introductory video. So in a whole school approach, as you can see in this beautiful illustration, the learner is placed at the center, and around him there are school actors and other stakeholders who work together in collaboration, and they all feel responsible and active in accompanying him in his educational journey. So a whole school approach implies also a strong cross-sectoral cooperation with a wide range of stakeholders, such as psychologists, nurses, social services, youth services, guidance specialists, speech therapists, community, NGOs, business, etc. That they all feel responsible and take an active role in working with the school to tackle early school leaving. The key conditions to implement this whole school approach are 5 key areas that they have been identified. And these areas are school governance, teachers, support to learners, parental involvement, and stakeholders involvement. So in these areas are strictly interconnected, and these also are the areas that the toolkit is built upon. So the content of the toolkit is divided in these 5 areas, and each area is divided in other sub-areas where they describe the challenges and they propose actions to introduce at the school level. So there are 27 sub-areas in the toolkit, and currently there are more than 100 resources. Actually, there are about 117 resources, and we will have more resources in the upcoming weeks. Who can use the European Toolkit for Schools? So school heads, teachers, policy makers, and anybody working with schools can find there helpful information, examples of measures, resource material, so they can get inspiration in their efforts in providing effective, high-quality education and reduce dropout. So the toolkit is constantly being updated and is translated in all languages. All the content of the areas and the sub-areas, the texts are translated, and all the summaries, almost all the summaries of the resources are translated in all languages. The work of the European Toolkit for Schools is supported by an editorial board, which reviews all the new content and resources, and based on some agreed criteria that you can also find inside the toolkit. So it's time that I get you in the toolkit, but before that I would like to tell you that the toolkit is hosted in the School Education Gateway, which is featured here in this beautiful roll-up. So the School Education Gateway is the Europe's online platform for school education. It's also available in 23 languages. It's a portal, platform where you can find information, you can find useful information, articles, resources, Erasmus Plus tools. You can participate in short polls. Each month we have a separate topic. It's very interesting. So I click here, which is the School Education Gateway, the entry point of the toolkit. And I invite you with me in the platform. This is the School Education Gateway. This month's focus is on STEAM. So you go below and here you click European Toolkit for Schools. And here we in the platform. So there are several ways to discover the content of the toolkit and the resources. The first and most simple one is just to browse across the content. You see here in the menu that we have the 5 areas, and below in the drop-down menu you can see the sub-areas. So let's say, for example, that you are interested in supporting your learners. So you go here.
Can you reshare your screen, Aristea?
Yes, hope so. Yes, okay. I am. Okay, I'm here. I'm back.
Yeah.
So let's say that you're interested to support your learners, and you click on the area Support to Learners. And in the beginning, you will find information why support to learners is important to tackle early school leaving. How can this be implemented? We also have available material for additional reading, and below you can find the resources that are linked to these to all the support learners. But let's say that you work in a school in a disadvantaged area and you're most particularly interested in monitoring learners at risk. So you go to this area of monitoring learners at risk, and there you get more information about what it is and how you can monitor learners at risk. And then below again, you get resources from this sub-area. For example, the first resource is a checklist and recommendations for prevention of absenteeism and school dropout. And by the way, this is one of the most downloaded resources of the toolkit. And for example, you can find another interesting one. It's a strategy in Serbia of combating dropout and early school leaving. That's just for example. So let's say that you come to the toolkit and you already have in your mind, you know already what you're looking for. Let's say that in your school you have a serious problem with bullying. So you want to find ways to fight with bullying. So here, instead of going through all the resources or the areas, you can use our wonderful search engine. So you can search among all the resources. You go here. And you type the word bullying, and you have 6 resources. One of them is a very for example, resource is a European Network Against Bullying. This project Enable. So let me just see how a resource in the toolkit looks like. So you click on the project, and then you find a short summary. Short description, and then you have files. For example, in this project they have developed some activities, and they have created a resource pack, which is also available in several languages, because you can also find information that this project has been implemented by these countries. This languages means that it's translated, its summary is translated to all these languages. And we can see, for example, you can have a look at the material, and then you can even contact the project coordinator on file, because as it says, Enable had trained a team of ambassadors in its participating country. So these ambassadors would be available to provide information and guidance to any school that would wish to implement the program. So that's just an example. Let's not forget that when teachers or school heads wants to implement a project in their schools, they should find inspiration and not just copy and paste, not recipes, because they need, when implementing and adapting a project, they should take into account their own population and their own context. For first-time users, so all this navigation in the toolkit, it's free. You don't have to have an account, but there are two more features in the toolkit for which, in order to access them, you need to have an account. It's very easy to have an account, because you either go to School Education Gateway or directly from the toolkit, and you just create an account. It's very quick. So let's say that someone wants a more personalized and tailored information. He has the possibility to fill in a questionnaire that you can find here. So in this questionnaire, he identifies his fields of interest. He has to add some information about from which region he comes, what kind of school is he working, what kind of information, areas, sub-areas. And once he fills in the questionnaire, which is very quick to fill, he gets a generated, the system generates a personalized, tailored report with resources for which correspond to his interests. And last but not least, and the one very interesting feature of the toolkit is the possibility that the users have and to suggest and submit their own resources. So if you think that you have projects that contribute in the prevention of early school leaving, that they promote an inclusive education, and they have a whole school approach and would fit to the toolkit, you are more than welcome to fill in this form. Have the title, a brief translation, some information. There you have also some kind of guidance. You will find also the criteria that they need that your resource, your example should agree, and then you submit the resource. So once you submit the resource, the editorial board will review it, and we will come back to you to inform you whether we will upload it or not, whether we might need some more information. So that's it for the toolkit. You are welcome to discover the content of its content. You can make it grow by submitting your own good practice.
Can I ask you one question, Arsti? And if people on the audience have questions, please do send them to me and I can ask them. So I'm very impressed with the whole school approach, which you've taken as your communication framework for your project. So I was just wondering, so you say that you're still updating the website, so which I think is great. And do you get a lot of people submitting new content now that your project actually ended, but you keep it alive, I guess?
The truth is that we don't have that many online submissions. We had, let's say, like 6 or 7 so far. But we ourselves, yes, we ourselves are also looking for projects, either Erasmus-funded projects, and the editorial board also has proposed new resources, or we identify good practices in schools that we try to bring them in the toolkit as good practices.
That's great. Well, we from ESLplus will definitely connect with you and make sure that your wonderful toolkit is available from the ESLplus side as well. So I would like to thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
I will send all the links in the email that all the participants will get after the webinar. Then I would like to move on to our next speaker, and that is Cilla Szabo from Hungary, from Tempus. And I would say, Cilla, take it away for your presentation.
Thank you very much, Peter. First, thank you for the presentation of Aristea. It was really impressive and really interesting for us as people who are working on a project dealing with early school leaving. And thank you for organizing the webinar again. And welcome to the participants from my side. I'm Cilla Szabo, the project leader of ESLplus project. But at this moment, I would present you another toolkit dealing with prevention of dropping out. That is a collection of practical solutions developed especially for teachers and school heads, school leaders, concerning developing early warning system in a school. So it has a sub area, if I can say this, within the early school leaving issue, and the toolkit that helps the school leaders and teachers to develop the early warning system in the school. So first, before I present you this toolkit, let me share my screen. Somehow, yes, it is here. And just a couple of words about the project, because I mentioned you that I'm the project manager of ESLplus project, and the toolkit that I will present you was developed within the Crocus project. Both projects are dealing with early school leaving and dropout, of course, and both projects are or have been coordinated by Tempus Public Foundation, where I work too, and both projects are financed by the European Commission, and both projects' aim is to develop, to help practitioners in their work against dropping out and early school leaving. The ESLplus project develops a portal collecting, among others, good practices from about early school leaving, and collecting results of European projects concerning the early school leaving, and try to give help, as I mentioned, especially for practitioners in school and around school, not just within the school. The portal what we develop within the ESLplus project is the ESLplus portal. And from this portal, I would navigate you to the ESL toolkit developed within the Crocus project, a kind of predecessor project of this ESLplus project. So first, let me show you this ESLplus project portal, where you will find, and you can find now, good practices, my stories, resources in libraries, so concerning the early school leaving, and in the good practice repository, you can find the short description of the Crocus project, what I mentioned and what I will present you soon shortly. So you can find it here in the good practice repository as well, among other projects and results of other early school leaving projects in Europe. But I would show you an easier way to find it. In the footer, there is a direct link to the Crocus project website. And if you click on it, you will find yourself on the website itself. So this project was focused on developing, as I mentioned before, an early warning system at institutional level. At institutional level means, in this case, the school level. So early warning system in school, and tested this, the developed early warning systems in a national context and in pilot schools. Crocus, the abbreviation means cross-sectoral cooperation focused solution for preventing early school leaving. And by the end of the project, a so-called Crocus Knowledge Center was developed, was set up on the portal of the project. So you can see here the Crocus Knowledge Center and the parts of the Knowledge Center. First, a resource pool where you can find professional materials, professional literatures for professionals, for experts, and of course for those actors in the school who are working on developing the early warning system within the school. And if you use the thematic tags, what I showed you in the previous page, and I will navigate you back there, because using the tags is important to find those documents and those contents on the portal. What are you interested in and what fits the best for your problem or challenge? So in the resource pool, you will find, you can find such documents and issues, descriptions of those aspects of the early school leaving, the most important aspects of the early school leaving. Besides, there is a guidelines for developing the early warning system itself. These guidelines were used by the mentors during the project, the mentors who assisted the schools, the pilot schools of the project during their work when they developed their own early warning system. So if you, as a school head, a school head, follow the guidelines, the step-by-step guidelines, you are able, together with your colleague, to develop your own early warning system. And if you use these guidelines, and now I'm coming to the very issue of this presentation, you are, so it supports effectively the usage of the tools in the toolkit. And this is the toolkit what was developed within the Crocus project. And as I mentioned, this is a collection of practical solutions for practitioners. So practitioners within the school. And for those practitioners who help their work around the school, as Aristel mentioned in the whole school approach in her presentation. So there are actors within and around the schools who are in close connection with students at risk in dropping out, and who help each other, who are in cooperation within each other together in their combating against early school leaving. So here are the tools. There are at this moment 28 tools. And if you use them, it is important so you can use them independently, but if you use the guidelines and the resource pool together, it is more effective in your work. And just let's say, just like Aristel did in her presentation, that you are a teacher who wants to get to know your student better. If you click on the tags at the main page of the portal, or just one tag, what is the best fit for your issue, or the issue that you are interested in, the system will find you the best solutions. I'm not the best solutions, but we'll find you tools from the toolkit. We'll find you descriptions from the resource pool and parts of the guidelines. So now for this tag, we got these suggestions from the toolkit, and I would show you Wish My Teacher Knew tool. It is a tool what can help you to get your students better, to get your students' background, non-school environment, thoughts better. So if you use it in classroom, it's a classroom tool. You can get more information about your students. So it's just a simple question, but if you see some answers, some sample answers in the description of the tool, you will see that the question is not as simple as it seems for the first sight. So if students answer these questions, you can get more information about them, but you can get, for example, the kind of early signs as well that can show you that those students are in risk of dropping out. So it's really a simple task, but it can be a first step, for example, to develop a personal development plan for a student who is in risk. Just for another minute, let me show you what happens if you click on the download button, because you can find here the whole tool. Again, I'm in the description, the expressive title, the short description, and a detailed description about the tasks, what you should or what you can do in case of this task with your students to find out what they want you to know about them. In the description, you will find advices as well, how to use this kit, what kind of environment you should or you can create for your students to be more honest using this tool. It's seeing its level. It says it's an easy level tool. It means that you don't need too much time and you don't need too many people to implement it. But if you want, for example, to develop a personal development plan in case of a student who writes something in his or in their answer, you will find a tool for setting up a personal development plan. So if you find it, if you want to find it among the tools, you can find it this way, or seeing the tags, or clicking on the tags, you can find it from the other way as well. So you can see here a more complex tool. Just look at the long description. The more complex means that you will definitely need more time, more people involved in the implementation or using this tool, including, for example, the parents as well of the students. And this tool will guide you step by step how to develop a personal development plan of a student. So it helps them, you as a teacher, the school, and the student and parents as well, to see what will happen with the student in the future, how he can develop, how he can learn not to drop out from the school. And just one more thing, because you can find attaching the tools downloadable attachment as well. For example, for this personal development plan, you can download a complex personal development plan form, what you can just fill in together with the involved other actors, and it is a full and complete help for you in your work to work with students and to develop, for example, such plans. So, that's all about the toolkit, and just one message by the end of the presentation, that from our side, welcome to discover the whole site and discover the results of the Crocus project, and of course the results of the ESLplus project at the ESLplus.eu portal as well. So
Okay.
thank you for the...
Thank you so much, Cilla. I really like the early warning system approach that you've taken with Crocus. And next webinar in October, we'll actually ask some of the presenters then. We have a really cool case study from Napoli in a very deprived area with lots of issues in the neighborhood. And I'm sure that the early warning system there is much different than the other presenter that we will have next time.
Yeah,
that's a parent from a very chic neighborhood in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
So we'll see what the differences are and which early warning systems work best in which situation.
Thank you for this note, Pete. Yes, I had to mention that this early warning system, what you see, or it's just it's a guidelines, but what pilot schools developed during the projects are different from school to school, because it's really personal. I mean, it is tailored to the needs and situation of a certain school.
Sure. I have one more question from another webinar delegate from Omar Mekki. He asked, is Crocus also translated in other languages?
Oh yes, I forgot to mention 4 languages. So it is in English, in Hungarian, in Slovenian, and in Serbian language. So the English is the most international among them, but you can use the portal.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time and your presentation, and we look forward to welcome you back next time. We'll move on to our next presenter. That is Agnes Balla from Expansio. So Agnes, whenever you're ready, take it away and enlighten us on your presentation on the ESLplus app.
Yes, thank you, Peter. Good afternoon, everybody, for all the participants in this webinar. Can you hear and see me?
Yes, we're
okay. Thank you
loud and clear
for the confirmation. And I would like to share, yes, my screen. Just a moment. I hope you can see it now. Can you see my presentation now?
Not yet, no.
Okay, maybe another. Okay, now, yeah, share screen. Okay, now I think it will work.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So just a few words about the application that I would like to present, because it's also focused on how to prevent early school leaving. And our main aim with this application, with this mobile application, is to combine a serious topic with a new learning tool. The mobile application is an innovative self-learning tool. It can be a kind of a game, but as I said, early school leaving is a serious topic. So that's why we would like to combine these 2 new things, and hopefully it can be a motivation for further learning for all the participants or all the users who will download and use this application. And of course, it's related to the previously mentioned ESLplus portal. Because as a mobile application itself, it's a bit limited concerning the topic, so it's rather give you a short glimpse or hints about early school leaving and how to tackle with this problem, and give you a broader perspective. I mean, as an application, but of course, all the content or the materials cannot really be uploaded in a small device. So that's why it's a kind of an outsourced surface of the portal, and you can find all detailed information on the ESLplus portal. But I would like to highlight one part, but before mentioning it, just to show you who is the target groups of this mobile application. It's especially for decision makers. So I think this is the main innovation among the mobile application itself. The mobile applications tend to be very frequently used nowadays as learning tools, but it's rather for teachers or for students, so different, so for different users. And now we would like to target policy makers, decision makers, regardless it can be at EU level or at country or school level or at local or regional level decision makers. Our main aim is to broaden their knowledge and widen their attitude towards early school leaving. Just a short slide about the modules of the application. So it will focus on your country's data, on European benchmarks and terminology, but the main or the core modules are about the strengthening attitudes and how to tackle with early school leaving. So it's via the questions. Of course, we will focus on whole school approaches. It was mentioned its importance, or we will focus on benchmarks and statistical data to show you the background of early school leaving. And this is the point that I would like to highlight. These statistical part, because as you can see, I highlighted some questions from the mobile application. For example, one question is about, I think it's more or less well known by everybody, that what is the average share of early school leavers that the EU 2020 strategy defines as the main target? So, for example, this is a kind of a question from the mobile application, but it can be a more complex question. For example, when you compare your country's data with other countries' data or at European level. So you can check where is the rate higher of early school leavers or youth unemployment or NEET students. So it's not only focusing directly to early school leavers, but considering the data, it's more wider, because just to show you that the topic or the early school leaving has a wider and more complex background as it would see at the beginning. So here are, for example, the questions of statistical data, and as I mentioned, the mobile application is a bit limited to show you all these possibilities, and that's why we connected this part to the ESLplus portal. And this is the time when I would like to give the floor to my colleague Esther Szegedi, who will present you the other details, so the more detailed part of the statistical part of the portal.
Just one question, Agnes. Is the mobile app available at the moment?
At the moment, we still develop it a little bit to be more user-friendly. But during the summer it will be available, and we will share it for testing and for further comments. But for example, for the webinar, it will be fully available. And
well, perfectly. We will make sure that we share the information as soon as it's available. Let us then move on rapidly to our next presenter, and that is Esther Szegedi from Budapest as well. So Esther, whenever you're ready.
Yes.
Go for it.
Welcome to everybody. And can you see my screen? Is it okay?
Yep.
That's great. So first of all, I would like to say congratulations to the School Education Gateway portal. It's very impressive, and I participated at the launching conference in Brussels 2-3 years ago. I don't remember exactly. And just a short story about from my side as a project leader, then on the launching conference, I at the same time was impressed and shocked, because I was impressed about the materials and the concept, and it was very, very interesting. And as I see now, it's much more developed, and very useful materials are put on the website. But I was shocked at the same time as a project leader, because we were at the middle of the Crocus project, and before developing our portal, and we just was selected. The ESLplus proposal just was selected, and almost the same ideas were in that. So that means that we had to start a kind of new plan, or focusing more particular approach of early school leaving issues. And that's what I would like to see show you on this chart, what the ESLplus portal offers you. This is a portal which focuses mainly for the practitioners, and we decided, based on the needs analysis, to focusing on deep level learning, what means that this toolkit is not necessarily very easy usable, but the users need to take more time for using the materials. And we had a very strong commitment for introduce the materials in context. And at least there are three very important contexts. First of all, the school context, secondly, the environmental and local context, and naturally the country context. Beside that, the social context and the family context, but this portal focuses these three contexts. And the school context, you can find good practices in a given template. It was introduced in the last webinar. So now I focus on the country context, what we can provide in the country context approach on early school leaving on European level. And it's a very close relationship between the mobile application was introduced by Agnes and this statistical module. And we always says in the between the project partners that these two tools are for smart policymakers, and I hope they will use it. So what is the interactive statistics module? First of all, the main goals were interactive online application for policymakers and researchers, and also for education administration staff. They can learn from this module. It's a dynamically configurable compilation of dataset and charts, and you can get quickly a comprehensive overview about ESL or ELET statistics, indicators, and for better understanding the complexity of the early school leavers problem, because the indicators and the data and the comparative analysis can help to understand better the problems. What is the innovation element in this statistics module? First of all, I think that we linked and made comparable data of different databases from the Eurostat, from the Education at a Glance and the PISA database as well, and some others. I will show it in the next chart. And this is a tool which allow a real-time data visualization and supported by short explanation. The real-time data visualization function will be available at the end of June, so I can introduce you the concept now and some interesting statistics from our analysis. What will be the functions of the module? First, for the online time series data visualization on charts and maps composed by the users themselves when they are selecting the variables and countries from a list. The timeline is 15 years from 2002 to now, and we are planning to put every year the next timeline data, and we focus only the EU countries. Every variable has a short description which means that it helps the European analysis for helping the interpretation of the indicators, and also we provide examples of the analysis what we have implemented. And one more function that the system automatically shows relevant EU studies and related content from the ESLplus portal, from the My Stories, the Good Practices library, under the occasionally created charts. And how to compile a chart. You will see in the next slide, but before that, just how to compose variables. One chance is to select pairs or groups of indicators to show one chart by countries, or you can select 3 countries and 1-2 variables to show on one chart, or select all the EU countries and 1 variable or 1 year to show on a map. We defined 5 bunch of indicators, and we use the problem-oriented approach. It means that the focus is on a complex examination that can show that how the early school leaving is associated with other educational and social statistics information, and that's why we put it in the other contextual indicators, and that's why we defined 5 bunch of indicators. The first is the early school leaving rate variables, which can reach the Eurostat statistic by gender, by age, or we can see data from the NUTS2 regions from Europe, or by employment, or citizenship situation. We also use the need variables because a lot of our European countries use the much more the need variables than the ESL rate. We focus thirdly on the education participation and attainment variables, the PISA data. Mainly for the low achievers, and other data which helps to understand better the country context, like GDP, the population, employment, or poverty. So this is a short screen from the portal. So here you can find that you can select the country first, or 2 countries. You can select variables. Here are the 5 bunch of variables. And if your mouse over on a variable, the short explanation or definition automatically showed by the system. And if you finish the selection, the countries, for example, in this example are Greece and Portuguese, and 2 variables from PISA, you can click the reload charts button, and online and real time you can see your chart. And there are some possibility to manipulate your chart by select or shorten or the timeline, or change the epsilon axis, and you can change the type of the graphs as well. You can see maps, or spider graphs, or line graphs, or column graphs, or whatever you want, and which is reasonable for those selection. And under the data and under the chart, you find the related content, which are automatically provided by the system. And how it relate to the mobile application. That was a question in Agnes' presentation, that what is the target on European level of the early school leaving rate. And after the user give a right answer, and obviously everybody knows that it's 10, but the mobile application signed them that he or she can see it on the EU map. And if they go to the statistics module, which will appear in a link there, they can make a comparison between 2 years, how developed EU in these variables. Or the next question was that what is your national target for early school leaving rate? And for example, in the Netherlands, it's 8%. So after the user answer, the system recommend to check it on the statistical model of the ESL portal, and they can learn it deeper, for example, by NUTS2 regions as well, where are the differences are seen, and that so it's much more sophisticated than only a national target number. Or a third example, compare your country data with others, choose a country where is higher where is higher the total rate of early school leavers, the rate of male early school leavers, etc., etc. So the users also can look at it on the ESLplus portal. Just they have to select those variables, put it on the map, put it on the chart, and reload the chart and see or compare the two countries. And just 2 more slides. I won't tell nothing about my analysis, but because of the time limit, but I think it's very, very interesting. And there are we have for every variables we have European analyses, and these are fantastically interesting. If you go deeper to the analysis, you can understand much more from the real background of the early school leaving problem. For example, regarding to the migrant people, regarding to the urbanization, a rural area, or comparing East European countries with the Scandinavian countries. So very, very interesting. And we implemented some analysis for every variables. This will be uploaded also for the statistics modules. And you can make your analysis, but you can also read our analysis and just to chart about about the urbanization, how is influenced the early school leaving rates. This is the European chart, and what is interesting, this is the charts by countries. And if you focus only for the colors, which the blue is cities, the green is the rural areas, and the red is the towns and suburbs, you can see that not the same trend is in the different countries. And this is the same with the citizenship. There are 2 categories also in citizenship: reporting countries, citizens of the EU, 28 countries except the reporting country, and from outside of the EU countries. And very interesting trends can be read from these charts as well, and very interesting differences between the countries. So thank you very much. And I hope that you will see the 2 portals of the ESLplus, which was implemented by Tempus Public Foundation and their project partners, the ESLplus and the Crocus portal. Also the School Education Gateway portal joined to the Association of Drop Prevention. And one more marketing about our portals. We just finished the build of the European methodology framework for facilitating teachers collaborative learning, and I think the topic is very, very close to the early school leaving problem from the teacher's aspect. So if you want, look at and visit these portals as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. That was wonderful. I think it's a very innovative approach. I love big data, and this tool that will become available very shortly will help a lot of people in Europe to do some analysis. That's excellent. And we also sent a recording of the webinar. Please do link to our LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube channels. And we'll take a break for the summer, but we'll be back in October. Thank you. Bye-bye.